Imagine a platform where some of Britain's biggest stars have the opportunity to reflect and celebrate their biggest professional accomplishments in a lovely, relaxed, chatty space. Since 2016, Josh Barry's Beyond the Title has celebrated the great and good of entertainment from showbiz legends to rising stars and everyone in between, who have each provided an insight into their remarkable careers in the public eye. So join Josh and the team as another significant figure in entertainment shares their unique anecdotes and stories exclusively on Beyond the Title.
Veteran writer, journalist and broadcaster Ross King is known to millions as the LA showbiz reporter for ITV daytime shows, a role which he's honoured since 1993 and has overseen the rise of the next generation of the Hollywood acting elite. In 1995, this Hollywood glamour proved valuable when he joined the team of BBC One weekday lunchtime chat show Pebble Mill alongside Alan Titchmarsh, Judy Spiers and the legendary Gloria Hunniford. In America, he's presented the Hollywood Christmas Parade and VH1's The Critics' Choice Movie Awards before returning to the UK in 2025 to compete in the 23rd series of the heavyweight Strictly Come Dancing. I got up with a bona fide friend of the stars to talk all things showbiz. Ladies and gentlemen, Ross King.
Okay, Ross, welcome to Beyond the Title. First question is an easy one. Who were your heroes growing up?
Who were my heroes growing up? Very simply, my dad, mum and dad, actually. They were just the most wonderful parents. I feel so, I often say very lucky, too blessed to be stressed and all those other expressions. But it's so true. Mum and dad were just absolutely brilliant. Neither of them in show business at all. I remember when I said to them when I was a kid, I want to go into show business because I was going to be a footballer. And my dad said, we'll support you whatever way we can, but we don't know Coco the Clown. So I don't think we can get you into show business. But they were just the most incredible couple. They brought me up so well with, so many just great values. But also, weirdly enough, as the more I look back on my life growing up as a kid in Glasgow, they were very musical. Mum played the piano. Mum was one of these kids that went into school when they would play the piano at school, and then she would come home from school and then just play the piano and without any teaching or anything. So she was phenomenal. Dad was in the Salvation Army, and he was the songster leader, like the choir leader, played in the band, was the band leader at times as well. So they were very musical. Dad would host events. So it was weird growing up because I would see my dad on a stage, but I would never think, because it wasn't like in a theater or something, it would be in a church hall or in a Salvation Army hall. But he would stand up and he would host things and do jokes. And so obviously I got, a lot of that from him.
Mm. Children's entertainment has become a genre in its own right. And in 1991, you joined the elite brand of entertainment when you presented the 8:15 from Manchester. What do you think it was about pop culture in the early 90s which demanded this type of show?
I think as a kid growing up, so there was no real Saturday morning TV for a long time when I was a kid. And then along came the multicolored swap shop, which was hosted by a guy who was my hero at the time, Noel Edmonds. And it completely changed Saturday morning TV for kids, because this was a show that was just for us. And it was just the most brilliant mix of cartoons and pop stars and chat. And it had people, of a certain age will certainly not remember it, but it was a swap shop. You could go on and you could swap things and go, I've got a Skeletric set and I'd like to swap it for a Meccano set, or I'd want to swap it for, such and such album. And it was so different and so innovative. And Noel Edmonds was just, for me, the master of live TV. So I think as a kid, you really wanted to do something like that. And then also, back then, it was just a perfect time. We did the show from Manchester, which was just an amazing hotbed at the time for music. It was Manchester, that was the big thing. And you had the Hacienda there. You had all these different bands all coming through. What I remember was that we had, if people don't remember the show, quite often they will remember the theme tune, the 8:15 from Manchester, which was in Spiral Carpets, who performed it. The 8:15 from Manchester, 8:15 from Manchester. And they came in, I remember when they came in one time to do the theme tune live. And one of their roadies was this young guy who was breaking into the music scene as well. And his name was Noel Gallagher, who then went on to, fair success with Oasis.
Yeah.
But it was a brilliant time. And so we had all these different bands coming on. I remember at the time that I would still be living in Glasgow at the time. I go down to Manchester, get there on a Thursday, and then Friday we'd have all these different rehearsals, and they talk about different weeks. And they'd always go on and say, "This guy Nigel has been on, and he keeps trying to push this band, Take That." And I mean, they hadn't had any hits or whatever, but we really want them to come on. And I remember eventually there were, Nigel was such an amazing hustler. And we said, well, put this band on. They're a local band. And I think that that was one of their first ever TV appearances on Saturday morning TV. So it was great that we could also give a break to new bands as well. So it was the one of the best times.
Mm. It's funny you should mention Swap Shop because last week we had Maggie Philbin on.
Oh my goodness me!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. We're just we're doing a children's TV series, so she was off that. But yeah,
Oh wow, Maggie Philbin, how wonderful!
yeah.
Oh wow.
How do you feel celebrity culture has changed over your career?
I think celebrity culture has changed incredibly over my career, just because simple things like the internet and social media has made such a huge difference. And I think it was interesting when I was a kid at school, and when people asked you what you wanted to do when you left school, if somebody used the word famous, it was before another word. So it was like, I want to be a famous footballer. I don't want to be a famous actor. I want to be a famous DJ. It was never, I just want to be famous.
Sure.
And of course, that completely changed with reality TV. And obviously, social media has had such a huge effect on that too. So it really has changed, incredibly dramatically. That, yeah, you can just be famous now. And people make incredible livings at it. I think probably, the benchmark was set by the Kardashians, who I think were kind of like the first ones to go worldwide and had just become famous for being famous.
Yeah,
Um, but it's changed, and again, when I was a kid, I went into hospital radio where I started, then I went to different, drama classes and things like that. And you really built up learning your craft if that's what you wanted to do, and that I wanted to do radio, I wanted to do TV, I wanted to do theater. And so you did have to, it was like an apprenticeship, I would say, that you had to go through. Whereas now you don't, but also you've got all these tools. Here we are today. With you both doing the podcast here. I mean, and it's amazing to think that here I am 5,000 miles away, and yet we could just link up via computer,
Mm.
and you can get in touch with me just by an email. It's such an amazing change in the way that the world is. When I think back when I was applying for jobs, you'd have to send off a letter, or and send off your photograph to some casting director, and wait ages for a reply. And the way that it's changed is absolutely phenomenal. And I think you have to embrace it all. And especially now when we're talking at AI, artificial intelligence. It's interesting. Someone said to me the other day, and I think it's so true. They said, you won't be replaced by AI, but your job will be replaced by someone who understands AI and can use AI. And I think that's a great thing, that for everyone to go, we have to embrace all these changes. And I think, sometimes people, as you get older, same for me as well, where, our careers were very different, and how we got to where we are was very different. And sometimes people go, oh, that's ridiculous. Now you can just become famous by putting something on, YouTube or whatever. And overnight, you get millions of hits. But it's a changing world. So embrace it, go with it, do what you can with it, and just enjoy it and love the opportunities that it gives to other people.
I he says yes. Yeah. So, this year,
Josh said he probably shouldn't admit this on the podcast, but for the first time yesterday, writing an interview for somebody, used AI to sort of find out more about somebody who he didn't have a great idea about, and the internet sort of has a lot of varying opinions. So, things like that now are able to give you a bit of a snapshot of people's career rather than having to trawl through and fish what's right and wrong and what's credible and not credible.
Yeah, it's incredible. But then also there is that thing where you only can take so much of it, and just take things at face value. And I know that with people that I've worked with, that if you have like young researchers, young producers, sometimes they go, you know, well, this must be true because again, you've gone to, chat GPT or something and just it's come up and it says this. You go to Wikipedia and somebody said to me the other day, oh, you went to Hermitage School, and I went, no. And I said, I don't, I said, I think there's a Hermitage Academy that is in Helensburgh, which is near Glasgow. And I said, no, never, never. And they went, oh, it's on Wikipedia. They go, yep. Oh, yeah. And at one point in Wikipedia, it said that I spoke fluent Welsh.
Multi-talented bloke.
If only.
Maybe that's what you talk, Welsh. Yeah, you just not been able to understand it yet.
Just with a different accent.
Yeah, that's it. In 1993, you secured your role as the LA entertainment reporter for ITV Daytime. What do you think it was about our fascination with America which demanded a dedicated US media journalist?
I think that we've always had a fascination with America. I've always had a fascination with America. When I came here for the very first time, I remember thinking, I really want to live here and I want to work here. And I think, again, as kids, we, growing up in TV and movies, and, especially at that time where, there were more movies that were obviously just made in America and big TV shows were all made in America, that it was part of our culture. And so you wanted to learn more about it and then wanted to be part of it. So when I came out here, that first time of seeing the Hollywood sign was such an amazing thing. And then seeing all the landmarks that I'd only ever seen, as a kid growing up in a council house in Glasgow, you never ever thought that one day you would actually, go to America or one day actually live here. So it was all part of a dream. And I think for a lot of people, and very much for me, being part of that American dream was so special. But I think, we've always had a fascination. So many things come from America. I mean, it's different now the way the world has opened with, as we said, the internet and social media. But I think there is still a fascination with America, and especially with Los Angeles, which even though there are not as many things being made here as there used to be, but it still is kind of the entertainment capital of the world. So I think we still look to America and look to Los Angeles. It's still, it's not the place that it once was, but it is still, I think it's still a great place.
And how would you sum up the difference between British and American showbiz journalism?
Um, I think here they tend to be a lot more over the top. I mean, it was interesting when I moved here, and then when I joined KTLA, which was a news station, and it's like the biggest one here in LA. It was interesting how people commented on the news. You would come off a news story and you would go, "Oh, that's so bad," or "That's so sad," or "Wow," as opposed to just giving the news. You could comment on it, which was such a big, big thing. And they do tend to go over the top here, which has always been an American thing. And I think we're a bit more realistic. And I think also when I give any of my reports here from Hollywood, I do tend to try and pull the curtain back a little bit on Hollywood, to try and explain to people that, this is how it looks on the outside, but the real story behind this is, or the reason that they're saying this is to create this. So hopefully I can bring a little bit more of a realistic approach to it.
Mm.
Just so that people kind of understand it a little bit more or have a different understanding of it rather than thinking, everything they say here is absolutely true. It's like, when two C-listers get together in a relationship, the PR companies always say two C-listers make an A-lister. So if you think about that in the general terms of things out here, that's how the addition works.
Yeah. Pebble Mill brought a slice of showbiz to a generation of working people. Why do you think it was so popular?
I think Pebble Mill was so popular just because at that time of day, it brought something that you really wanted, which was, just a slice of showbiz, a bit of glitz, a bit of glamour. I was lucky in all the 5, 6 years that I did it. I got to travel a lot to come out. That was the first time that I got to come out here to Los Angeles. And I think we just put a little bit of sunshine in people's lives and a bit of entertainment, especially at a time of day. I mean, I did Pebble Mill. So when I was a kid at school, Pebble Mill at 1 was a show. And it came the Pebble Mill Studios in Birmingham. So I would run home from school for my lunch break, and mum would, have my lunch ready. And we'd watch Pebble Mill at 1 then. And there was always like a pop group that kicked off the show. And so I just loved it. So then years later, when Pebble Mill was not Pebble Mill at 1. We actually went on at 12 o'clock. People used to say Pebble Mill was breakfast TV for students and people who weren't employed at the time. That's kind of what it was kind of like. And I think, yeah, we just hit a market there, and we brought something that just wasn't available and wasn't, there. And it was a big entertainment show. We had a live, 5-piece band. It was a big studio. We had big crews, and we had the biggest stars of the day on the show. So I think that's what it was. I think that there's a little bit of escapism as well. I still feel the same way. You sit down at night, and now obviously you've got multitude of platforms that you can look at. And sometimes, yeah, you just want to watch a video about dogs being silly. But you just want a little bit of escapism from your life. And I think that's what we brought.
We really love it. I think that what
Josh said he really loved it. He thinks, probably looking back, that was where his fascination began with
Really?
showbiz.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
In your opinion, how important was the Pebble Mill Studios to the BBC's output of the 80s and 90s?
Oh, it was a huge part because that was one of the first times that people really knew where the studios were, and the fact that it was the name of the studios was in the title. I think we knew Broadcasting House, and again, going back to, talking about Swap Shop, we knew it came from TV Centre, like this holy grail of a place in London, which it was really strange that obviously it was such a place for the BBC. And then when the BBC moved out, then ITV, we moved in there.
Mm.
And it just seemed really weird doing shows for ITV from what was BBC Television Centre. But I think also with Pebble Mill, because that we would use different areas of Pebble Mill, and initially that Pebble Mill at One show came from the foyer, which was something that was completely different. So you actually saw outside, you saw through the glass, which was kind of almost a little bit of a what would you say? It was a little bit groundbreaking in terms of it was like, wow, here's a TV studio, but we're not just closed in a TV studio. There's actually an area outside. And of course, that area around Pebble Mill was so lovely as well. And it was very leafy and very green. And it was great because it was outside London. There you were in Birmingham. And it also did set the way for a lot of shows to then go, you know what, let's have a studio, but let's have it open like This Morning did when they came from the docks in Liverpool. Even back to, my old hometown of Glasgow, you've got STV and BBC there as well. And their studios were right on the River Clyde. So, a lot of shows would actually feature the river behind them. So I think it was just nice opening things up, and not everything has to be closed and it has to be a studio. So I think that part of it was great. And, Pebble Mill itself was a character. And, when I joined there, even when I went there for the first time, you were going into it was like, it's Pebble Mill. And, you would mention the name to people and they go immediately, oh, yeah, Pebble Mill, Birmingham, TV show. It was interesting that a name was so synonymous with a TV show.
And did you have a favourite guest?
Oh, my goodness me. Favorite guests. So many favorite guests over the years. Trying to think of Pebble Mill. I think one of my favorite guests, and he's always been a favorite guest of mine, is Sir Cliff Richard. And what was so lovely was that the day that he was coming on the show, the Shadows, his backing band, and stars in their own rights as well, they were going to perform with Cliff. And Cliff was late getting to the studios, and we had to do a camera block through, like a rehearsal. And so the Shads were there, and then Cliff still hadn't arrived, and they said, look, we just need to go ahead with the rehearsal, but we can have someone standing in for Cliff. And I got to know the Shadows just a little bit. And they were like, Ross, come on, Ross, you come in, you be Cliff. So I actually got to, for the rehearsal, I got to be Cliff, and I got to fall. And we did a couple of songs, and it was just amazing that I was looking around. It's the Shadows, and I'm doing, a couple of songs, doing Living Doll and what have you. So that was a really special moment for me.
Mm. Looking back at those Pebble Mill interviews, what do you think they tell us about where pop culture was during the 90s?
I think that probably then people were a little more open than they are now. And I can completely understand it, because people thought, well, it's a live TV show and you do it and you chat and that's it. It's kind of gone out into the ether. Whereas now everyone's so aware that everything that you say can be taken, can be manipulated, put another way if it's taken out of context. And also it gets shared all around the world within seconds. And so I think people are a little more guarded now as to what they say in interviews sometimes. And I completely understand it, because they're thinking, if I say this, could it be taken to mean that? If it's, if it's edited down and it's the whole interview's not shown. So I think that's what's happened now, is that people are certainly more, aware of what you say and where it can go and how it could sound. And again, if you take it out of context, it can sound completely different to the way that it was meant. So yeah, I think it's definitely changed like that.
Mm.
Boy, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh just said we've sort of noticed that we've been doing this for just 10 years this year. And even in that time, it's changed where like we were saying earlier with AI, there's AI tools that they can use to find clips from the internet that make headlines. And, we've had people that have mentioned stuff completely innocently, and it's just an opinion of something that then's been turned into a headline. And they're a bit like, yeah, but yeah, that is my opinion of that. That's it's not really a headline, but yeah, that is what I think. So,
Yeah.
but it is, they obviously got software now that just sort of skims the internet for, things that they can just make headlines out of. Obviously, that's big business, isn't it? With advertisements on,
Mm.
news
Yeah, well,
and stuff like that.
yeah. If you look, this week there was that AI, the fight between a Brad Pitt and a Tom Cruise, which was all completely artificial intelligence. But you see how good it was. I mean, you can still go, it looks a little bit like AI, but how far it's come on in such a small amount of time. And you go, wow, if we got to there in that amount of time, and with everything just progressing and getting better every single day, you realize that it's going to be a very different world, and it's going to be an interesting world. It's almost like someone having a superpower, but you want them to use it for good and not for evil. But you realize how it is to use AI for bad. And I think that's going to be such an interesting thing, and also for young kids coming through as well, that because it's just going to be part of their life, like Chat GPT is just such a part of people's lives. I know, huge songwriters out here who are so incredibly talented, but they'll maybe get stuck with the song and go, I'll just feed it into Chat GPT and it'll come back within 6 seconds. Something that would have taken them weeks to do comes back, and then they go, right. And now the great thing is that they can take that and learn from it and go, okay, it's not quite right, but it's giving me an idea to move it this way or whatever. So again, it's like using it for good and realizing that Chat GPT can only have what's fed into it. It's not got, obviously, our personalities.
Yeah.
But it's phenomenal.
Mm. For generations, we've opted into this rhetoric that America is the world leader for entertainment. Yet, with financial investment in our homegrown streaming services, how relevant is this conversation in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, we've changed a lot, haven't we? And I think, the investment in, if you go on the film side of things, the film studios that are springing up all over the place. Um, you know, you've got, obviously, the major ones like the Pinewoods, which have just got bigger and bigger. But then you've had investment, in Ireland, a lot of TV shows, out of here. I watch things like, Name That Tune, or, like I think the 1% Club or The Floor. They're all made in Ireland. The ones that are shown here, not just the British versions of these shows, they're made there. And then, you have the studios that are springing up in Wales, and then springing up in Scotland as well. And then you see shows like Outlander, which have done phenomenally well all over the world. So it's definitely changed a lot, and I think rightly so, because we have got an incredible talent in the UK, and I think for a lot of people, they probably felt for a while that you've got to go to LA, you've got to make it in America, and that's certainly not the case now. And that's a great thing, because we've got so much talent in the UK, that whether it be in Britain or Ireland, the pool of that talent is phenomenal, and also now to give it places that it can show it. But again, that also comes down to, as we've talked about, with social media, with the internet, with the fact that we can make shows so much easier now. When I was a kid, if you wanted to be on the radio, you had to be on a radio station. And, initially that might have been a hospital radio station, which I was on in Glasgow. But then you went into local radio, like Radio Clyde, where I joined. Then you went to Capital, or then you went to the BBC, which I was lucky enough to do. All these things it was so hard. I mean, even simple things like, The first time I ever saw an auto cue or a teleprompter was when I was in a TV studio. Whereas now you could just go online and you can just get an app on your phone and you could practice with the teleprompter on your phone or on your iPad if you're lucky enough to have these things. It's completely changed, which is brilliant because again, it was when I was a kid, it was like almost out of reach. I mean, I was lucky that I actually managed to get to touch it, but for so many people, it was just completely out of reach. Whereas now, you could do a radio show now, stick it on YouTube, put it out on any one of the social media platforms. It's amazing.
We remember in the last world we were 3 hours later, we had to home and able to our breath. Me on my brain is
Josh, the last Football World Cup, we watched, got invested in a show that was running just solely from YouTube that Jack Whitehall was doing, and it had, good celebrity guests and all of that sort of stuff, but was, obviously really sort of simply put together. And, Josh said, at that point you start thinking to yourself, maybe this is the future.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Instant and free access, I suppose, to...
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, even if you look at TV shows now, because we went from, and again, you think how quickly things change from like podcasting to like vodcasting, and now a lot of TV stations are picking up these shows, either just taking people's podcasts or just replicating it, because again, it's like here we are today. I'm here. This is the studio that I use when I'm on Lorraine on ITV, or I'm on Vanessa on Channel 5, or if I'm on Australian TV or New Zealand or Canada, whatever. It's just so immediate now. But also, I think it's an interesting thing that there used to be a thing when I was a kid starting off, and they would say it's not broadcast quality. And it was like, you go off and shoot something, or even from a radio point of view, you'd record something and the mic wasn't that great, or the camera, the light had got in or whatever. And they would actually say, it's not broadcast quality, and it wouldn't go out. And I think then what happened was that when we started, when the camera phones came in at first, and the quality was really bad, but people would just go, I just quite like looking at something on my phone or looking at something on my computer. And even though the quality wasn't great, a generation came through going, it's okay. And so now I had never, ever hear the expression, it's not broadcast quality. And then obviously when we went through the pandemic, when people started using Zooms all the time, and that came into just normal TV, news shows, whatever. We got used to Zooms. Now the quality got better because people then would start using better cameras. Internet speeds went up, et cetera, et cetera. So from the technical side of things, it got better. But it is still amazing how the stuff that you would a few years ago, I think, broadcasters would go, oh, that's not broadcast quality. Now it is. And again, Josh, as you're rightly saying there as well, it's definitely a way ahead. And the bottom line is it's cheap television. It's cheap. And, budgets have just come down so much over the past few years in TV that people are going, well, I can just take that, what was a podcast, I can stick cameras on it now. The camera qualities, when you think the quality of for iPhones, it's phenomenal now. So, what you can use and what you can get away with, and it's not even a case of getting away with it, the quality, your 4K, you're up to 5K, It's amazing. So it does make it so much more accessible to everyone. And again, you got to embrace it.
Yeah. When the legendary Michael Parkinson retired, he remarked that as a whole, his interviews charted the second golden age of Hollywood. Looking at your showbiz interviews from the past 3 decades, what do you think they say about the state of Hollywood in the 21st century?
Again, that it's changed. That stars were stars. I mean, even and Michael Parkinson was someone that I looked up to. I was lucky to interview him a couple of times, and I absolutely, loved that and cherished those moments. But and also, you think back that certainly when Parky was starting off, a lot of these stars we didn't see stars anywhere else other than when they were in a movie or even say on a TV show. So you didn't know that much about them. You didn't hear them speak out of character. And so, with Michael's chat shows, it was like, oh my goodness me, it's, here's a big star that we've only ever seen in a movie. Oh, they've got a different accent now or whatever. It was so enlightening. And I think that over the years, the stars have become so much more accessible, just again through social media. So we see much more of them. We know much more about them, which I also think is sad in some respects, because I think it was lovely when we didn't know everything about them and everything about their love life or who they were dating. And also, that's why when you think of when the Oscars, much as I still love the Oscars and it's a great day and I love it, and I'm very lucky that I get to do the show live in ITV and we come live from the red carpet. But, people come along and you know so much about them now that you didn't in the past. And so when people would watch the Oscars, this was such a big night because it was like, oh my goodness me, there's, this movie star that we've never seen out with a movie screen, but there they are. And then they're turning up and then it's who's their date or whatever. And it was like this intrigue that we saw a completely different side to them. So I think that a little bit of the magic has gone, a little bit of the myth has gone. But again, it changes, life changes, and on we go.
Do you ever sort of fear that the introduction of all of the social media and the availability sort of could dilute your craft?
Oh, I think it has, without a shadow of a doubt. It's absolutely diluted, what we do. And again, getting to a point that we talked about earlier, when you chat with people, they're still quite guarded. It's weird. I think it's weird sometimes that when you get, say for, and I think football's a great analogy. You'll get an interview on, let's say, network TV or on Sky, and you've got an interview with the football, and it's after a game or before a game, and it's all very much, we're taking each game as it comes, and yeah, we're going to then it's quite staid, and sometimes can be a bit boring, and then they'll go on a podcast and then say the most kind of outrageous things, and I think it's really weird. It's almost like you go, why are you saying that on the podcast? Why weren't you like that in the interview on TV? And I wonder, when they will actually become like a bit more of a mesh. I mean, I think it is happening a bit, but it still makes me laugh that, people will say that on a podcast. It's like, what do you think? Because there's not as many people watching as there are on a TV show. And then, of course, people now realizing, it's like, your podcast that you get, you can get millions of hits, which, TV audiences, just normal TV, um, terrestrial TV is going down every single year.
Mm.
So I don't know. I do find it sometimes a very weird, yeah, strange thing where it's almost like we'll say that there, but we won't say that there. I don't know. I do find it strange.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. It's okay. Hey, hey, no. Hey, 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 Yeah. What and what not say.
Yeah, just said we sort of noticed that when we interview people that are a slightly bigger name, that you can tell that they've sort of been briefed by their PR people beforehand. You know, when the interview opens out, try and talk about this a bit more, and definitely don't mention this. And we'll get the email afterwards that says, actually, that bit where we spoke about that, could you just delete the whole thing? And
Yeah. Yeah, it is, and we get that, sometimes as well. I have a thing where, and it's genuinely true, is that sometimes a PR or somebody will say, "Oh, can we see a list of the questions?" And I go, "No," because I don't have a list of questions. I go into an interview. I mean, I've got thoughts in my head, but I don't have. I'm not sitting down with a card, which I've got my 15 questions. I just go, yeah, let's see how it goes, and then we chat, and then sometimes you go off on a tangent, and you go with that. But you can see there definitely is. People want control more over things, and also publicists again, very wary of how things can just be taken out of context.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame as well, because people just get so caught up in it and so guarded, or they just want to talk about what they want to promote or whatever.
Yeah.
And it can make it tough. And again, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that you get people saying, "Yep, take out all of that," or "I didn't mean to say that," or yeah, it's definitely a very strange world out there.
Yeah.
Take me ever give in her so you what
Just do you ever give in, or have you ever given in with people who ask for questions or a preview or anything like that?
No, no, never given in. I mean, what I say is, I say, look, I'm a reasonable person. I'm not in this. I'm not trying to catch somebody out. I'm not trying to dig up a bit of dirt. But if there's something that's been either particularly newsworthy, or it's something that they've talked about, or something that they've come across, then I will say, I will ask the question. And even if it's a difficult question, um, but I always say I will answer it. I will ask it in a fair way.
Mm.
Or I will say, maybe at some point, you've talked about this. If it comes up and we talk about it, I will ask a question on it, but I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole and then make the whole interview about that. But if there's something that I think is very newsworthy, again, or something that they've spoken about, then I think it's only fair game. But I always go, my interviews, I want everyone to come out of it well. I want them to look good. Because at the end of the day, I always think, when we would do Pebble Mill, and it was quite interesting, the interviews then, they could be like 9, 10 minute interviews, which, if you go into a junket now, you're lucky if you got 8 minutes, somebody will go, we've got 3 minutes, or even on a red carpet, sometimes a publicist will say, you've got 2 questions.
Yeah.
So, you've got to make them hit. But I think you always want to be fair. That's how I look at things. Um, and I'm not. I don't want to be controversial for the sake of being controversial. Or asking something that is outrageous just because I know it's going to get an outrageous, response or whatever. And I like to think that's why I've been doing what I've been doing for such a long time, and that I'm still doing what I do, and that people trust me.
Yeah.
And I think they trust me, and it's not because I'm just going to lob really easy questions, but they know that I'm going to be fair, or I'm going to listen to an answer and give a fair response, or have an intelligent follow up. And it's not just, let's just be controversial for the sake of being controversial. So I'd like to think that's how, people look at me. And, again, as we're saying, peel back the curtain a little bit in Hollywood. I don't think you want to rip the the curtain off and people go, oh, that's how it's all done. But I think, people like to learn a bit more about things.
About 10 years ago, I played the Bruce Ability. Hey, let check yeah, I
Just said when we were first starting out, we used to interview people in person a lot, face to face.
Yeah.
Or COVID, it was pretty much all we did. And we interviewed somebody who was quite famous, pretty famous person, and they sort of asked, could they see the questions, and it was up before, and we said, it's not really what we like to do. It's,
Yeah.
it's a celebration of people's career. It's not, it's not conventional. It's not a grilling. And then when we got there, they sort of just snatched the paper and refused to start until they'd read through what Josh had written. So, yeah.
Oh,
Some people are just obsessed with knowing what they're going to be asked because they don't want to come across badly, aren't they? But I suppose it's they don't. I think you hit the nail on the head with the trust thing. If you can build a career where you become a trusted face, and you can get around it a little bit easier.
No, I agree. And James, because you've been with Josh for a long time, so do you have like a sort of shorthand, or you just completely understand?
Yeah, word for word.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. It takes it doesn't take too long. It takes a few weeks, but where people first start the job to sort of start getting the hang of it. I suppose it kind of starts like learning any other language, where you get bits,
Yeah.
and then you work out the likelihood of certain bits going into, sentences, and then you get more of a sentence, and then before you know it now, I've been with Josh 16 years this year, so
Wow.
I can understand and have conversations with him from another room. I don't hear his voice in my head differently to other people's voices now. I suppose it's what it would be like if you were bilingual or something like that, and you flick between one language and another. I suppose it's pretty what it is similar to, but
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's absolutely
it
amazing.
takes a bit of practice. But like Josh says, he can't understand himself. We've recorded stuff before where we recorded Josh's voice, and then for shows and things like that, I've put subtitles across the bottom of the screen.
Right. Yeah.
And Josh has listened to it back, and he's just sat there. Just and what did you say? Is it good? Yeah, it's okay.
What that I never get what
Just said when he was at university, they had to do like an oral exam, which was recorded and then like watched back so that they could, give feedback and stuff at the same time. And Josh didn't have a clue what he was watching, so he had to rely on somebody else to translate it first, and then he could maybe reply. Yeah. So we want to ask you about Strictly Come Dancing.
Yeah.
2025 stepped out from the Hollywood sign and enrolled into Strictly. Did you have any reservations?
Oh, loads and loads and loads of reservations.
Could you dance before?
No, couldn't dance at all. I mean, I've done musicals where I've moved, but I certainly, couldn't, ballroom dancing, Latin, no. not the slightest clue at all. And I watched out here. Catherine Jenkins is a friend of mine, the amazing singer, and she did Dancing with the Stars out here, the American version of Strictly. And I went to see her years ago, and she was phenomenal. I mean, she was as good as some of the professionals. And I was like, oh my goodness me. And so I'd been sort of approached about it before, but I'd never ever really given it a thought because I thought, it's just I couldn't do anything at all. And then they came back last year, and just the way that there was a change at ITV in terms of different times that I could get off from ITV, and because in the past it's never ever been able to work out work wise. So suddenly I was like, oh my goodness me, I think I could actually do it in terms of having the time to come over, etc. Because it's a huge commitment. Yeah, I thought, no, I'll go for it. But I mean, oh my goodness me, was it hard work? Yeah, I mean, still not real hard work compared to what what people have to do hard work in real life. But it was 8 hours a day, and I did it every single day. I took it very seriously. Jovita Pristal, my partner, was just the most amazing woman. She was so kind, gentle, had the patience of three saints. She was just a great teacher. She made it fun. But it was a lot of work, and also because I was doing TV in the morning as well. So you'd be up early, go off, do TV, then finish that, then get in the car, go straight to the rehearsal studio, rehearse for 8 hours, finish, get back home, fall into a bath, have an Epsom salts bath, then literally come out of that, just go into bed. And then in your head, you're going over, what foot was it? Was it the left foot? Was it the right? And then, oh, what's that bit and this and that? And then, you'd have the song that you were performing to going through your head. And then I would fall asleep with it all in my head, and then waking up again, you know, crazy early next day, go through it all again. But it was the most amazing experience to do that, and to be on a show that, I mean, it was amazing, the reaction from so many people. And it was lovely for my family as well in Scotland because they loved the show. I never ever thought that I would be on it. So it was all just the most amazing experience.
Jocelyn's got a technical question, which might be a bit boring, but
That's all right.
Jocelyn, when you were obviously in London doing Strictly, and then you had to go on things like Lorraine, did you still sort of stage it like this, or did you just go in?
No, it was not a boring question. It's a fair question. No. We never ever. The only day that we staged a little bit like this was the day of the reveal, when I said I'm going into Strictly. So we caught it up in Lorraine's studio, this kind of background, and then I leaned back and then pushed it down, and then to reveal that I was actually in Lorraine's studio. So that is the only time that we ever did that. No.
Looking back at your career, what's your proudest achievement?
Wow, great question. Proudest achievement. I think I'm quite proud of the fact that I'm still working, and that my career has gone on for as long as it has done, and that I'm still as enthusiastic about everything. I still love every minute of it. It's great fun. I love the fact that it changed. Like last year, if you'd said to me this time last year, what you're going to be doing for the rest of the year, and if you'd said, well, I think you're going to end up being on Strictly Come Dancing, you're going to be doing the Paso Doble to the Thunderbirds theme tune, and then you're going to finish off doing Panto with Rylan in Southend to the best Panto you've ever done. I probably would not have gone. Well, I know that I would have gone, no, I don't think so. Really? Well, it sounds great, but I don't think that will happen. So for that to happen, and I think that's the great thing. I mean, I think from my family point of view, I was incredibly proud when I got an MBE, but I got it for charity, the arts and broadcasting. So to get it for 3 different things was lovely. And I've said it before, that my dad and my mum, the work that they did in the community with charity and a whole host of other things. I remember when the New Year's honours list would come out, or the birthday honours list would come out, and I go, "Oh, Dad, you didn't get anything," and he would be like, "People like us don't get things like that." And I think that when I got it, I was like, "This is really for my mum and dad. It's not for me; it's for them." So that was a great achievement, and I just feel so lucky to have done all the different things that I have done over the years. Again, if you'd come to me as a kid at school in Glasgow and said, "This is what will happen over the next, whatever 40 odd 50 years," you would go, "Nah," and it has. So again, just every day, I just there's something new, and it's like sharing this podcast. Um, with you both it's again, it's inspirational, to see the way that you both work and the way that you both work together. And again, it just reminds me of how much smaller the world has become, and how also accepting of different things. I always think that I was really lucky as a kid, growing up doing local radio, and you would meet people uh, with different things in their life that they've had to deal with. Again, obviously, like yourself there, Josh, with cerebral palsy, that you got an understanding of things very early when I was young, and I think that again, it was something that didn't happen as much now. We weren't aware of things. There's a wonderful movie out at the moment. I don't know if you've seen it, called I Swear, which is based on the true story of a young guy growing up in Scotland who had Tourette's syndrome. And at the time, they thought it was just like a plea for attention. They had no idea what Tourette's was and all the different forms of Tourette's. And I think that I feel really lucky that to a young age to have come across people, with different abilities, um, you know, that you learned about things. And I think even like with my niece and nephew, Holly and Ewan, they grew up in a house where my mum and dad, as they got older and both suffered from dementia, that they became carers. And for them at such a young age to become carers, to realize, what is out there in the world, and to help and assist, or just to be understanding of things, I think is such a huge thing. So again, I look back and I think I was very lucky, to be involved with people at such a young age, and then to learn.
Yeah. Um, so maybe like you just mentioned before, this time last year you wouldn't have guessed, but we're going to ask you to guess what's next for Ross King.
Well, that's the brilliant thing, is that I have no idea. I mean, I'm open to everything. There's yeah. I mean, it's like there's nothing that I wouldn't go. Yeah, I'll have a go at that. I'll have a challenge. I think also, as you get older, you go, yeah, bring it on. I mean, I know some people go the other way, but I'm very much like, yeah, give me a new challenge. all those expressions like comfort zone, etc., etc. But I'm just up for the challenge, because you just don't know. And again, with the way that our world is changing and that our business is changing so much, you just don't really know, what will be next. But I think the great thing is to get up every day and to go, look at the challenges, Josh, that you've overcome. It's just phenomenal. And that's so inspirational. And for James to look after Josh in the way that you do is inspirational. And that challenge that you guys face every single day, that's a huge challenge. So any challenges that come my way at the moment, they're so small. But again, I look forward to the fact that things will hopefully come in. But also, again, I'm lucky that I can reflect. When I do something like this, I can reflect and go, "Oh my goodness me!" You'll bring up shows that I've kind of forgotten about or forgotten that I did certain things. So again, it's been appreciative of that.
Just don't do the jump if they bring that back.
Oh God,
That's it.
remember? That's so. It's so weird that you say that. I was watching the Winter Olympics.
That's what I just thought about them,
Yeah.
because I was watching the ski jumping, and I thought, oh my God, do you remember when they made celebrities do that and everyone was just breaking bones left, right, and centre?
Yeah, exactly. And
It's almost like you can't just let people do something that takes years to perfect.
no, exactly. And I said it to my girlfriend, and I said it was funny I'm very lucky that I love skiing, and I learned to ski as a kid in Scotland, which is quite hard because you're skiing in ice. But I remember as a young, I used to love, you'd go for like these dangerous jumps, not obviously jumps like, proper ski jumps, but you would find these moguls, or you'd find a bit and go, wow, and you'd get airborne. And I said, what I think, again, as we talked about how technology changes, that the drone footage is just
Yeah, it's
changing
amazing, isn't it?
the way that, but also you get that, I think when, again, skiing, and even now, if you suddenly went down a different run and you went, oh, I didn't see that was coming to the end, and you get airborne, that feeling of, whereas when you see that drone footage, and you're like, oh my goodness me, the height that people get from the ski jump, even when it's the skate, the snowboards as well. I mean, it is absolutely phenomenal. But it's weird. I just said to my girlfriend, there was a show in Britain called The Jump. It was almost like nobody had really thought it through.
Yeah, they look people that had no business doing ski jumping,
Exactly.
did ski jumping.
Yeah. And thinking you just go for it. And it's like, you think we might have learned from Eddie the Eagle just how hard it was.
No, Josh said he doesn't think there's enough insurance available for him to get asked to go on the jump.
Great point. Great point. And for me too. Very true.
Well, thank you very much we'll let you go. Thank you very much for your time.
My absolute pleasure. It really has been an absolute honor to come on your podcast. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our wonderful guest for being the subject of another Beyond the Title episode. If you like this, why not browse the website and see if there's anything else you like. We're now on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. Everywhere, quite frankly. Don't forget to like our Facebook page to receive updates on forthcoming interviews, and please do give this podcast a little share. Not in a shoop-shoop song kind of way, you understand, although that's probably quite welcome. Thanks again. Hopefully see you next time. From all of us here, goodbye.